very pleased to introduce Nicole Allison as moderator for this panel, who is project manager at the brilliant Switch the Play Foundation. If you don't know who Switch the Play are, or you're not familiar with them yet, I am sure that Nicole will explain. They are absolutely wonderful. So please put your hands together for Nicole and the panel.
Thanks, Jess. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I'll let the guys sit down. Wow, what a brilliant day. Very insightful and inspiring day from everybody. And I'm delighted to be joined on the stage today by 3 of our beneficiaries at the Switch the Play Foundation, and also 3 of our athletes that are part of the Women in Sport Mentoring Programme, which is supported by Omnia Sport and the Hypatia Foundation. So I will leave it for these guys to introduce themselves, starting with Ella.
Hi, I'm Ella. I am a dual international athlete with basketball and netball. I currently play in the Netball Super League, and I also work alongside that as a head of netball at a group of private schools in Loughborough.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I've played football for over 20 years, played for my country, international level with Scotland. I currently play with Nottingham Forest. I've been involved in sport in many different ways throughout my life, throughout my career, and currently head of sport at Ad Management.
Hello, I'm Arela, a retired volleyball athlete, and currently working in digital marketing, athlete wellness, been in the health and well-being space for a very long time, 8+ years. Been an athlete since I was 3, and yeah, just excited to be here and share my story.
Thank you, guys. And yeah, we've got a really interesting panel today because you've all got very different stories and journeys. We're going to talk very much about the reality of being a female athlete. So I'm going to come to you first, Lauren, because you are living very much in a reality at the moment of what does life look like after playing professional sport?
Yeah, I guess I'm in a bit of a quandary at the minute because I'm, I guess, on the brink of retirement a bit earlier than I hoped. I'm just recovering from knee surgery. It's actually my 6th knee surgery I've had in my career. I'm 32, so I guess I'm still young enough to play. I think someone said earlier you only come into your prime when you're in your 30s, so I feel like I'm cut off in my prime. But yeah, so that obviously comes with mixed emotions. Interestingly, I have a little bit of experience of stepping away from sport and from football before. I left competitive football at 26. I moved country to do something completely different, again, on the back of quite a few injuries. I had 3 ACL injuries before I turned 20, so it was quite a turbulent sort of period in my life, and I felt like by the age of 26, I kind of wanted to step out of that and kind of get out of my comfort zone and move somewhere completely different. So I guess that's kind of prepared me a little bit for this sort of sudden reality to hit now, and I guess it's helped me kind of try and look at the positives of being open and also excited about opportunities off the pitch, even though it's kind of come a bit quicker than I'd hoped for.
Yeah, so those focusing on those opportunities as opposed to sort of seeing it as barriers. And Ella, tell us a bit about your challenges that you've sort of faced during your amazing career.
So I've had quite a, well, I'm going to say long career at the age of 32 as well. I moved home to go to the USA to study, because that's a brilliant opportunity that I think most people couldn't turn down, especially as you get a full ride scholarship, which isn't available here. So that itself was a hard decision because at that time I was progressing in my netball career as well, and obviously the USA don't play netball, so that was a decision, a hard one. Am I making the right decision? Which profession am I going to get further in from an athlete perspective? I think I made the right one in terms of opportunities and different life experience personally, but I've obviously had injuries, as any athlete does, like Lauren. So I've just returned from my 2nd ACL, which was a 16-month recovery process compared to my first, which was 7. So each one's different, mentally trying to get over that barrier and then facing the fact, will I actually come back and play? What are the different opportunities I've got? And then when you face that, you're then thinking, well, what have I actually done? Yeah, I've accomplished a lot in sport, but I can't write, oh yeah, I played a few games for my country on my CV, and people are always like, you need work experience, da, da, da. So you're in that sports bubble where you've not got the time to have that work experience when all your friends are having work experience when you're going through uni or college, etc. So come into that and try and find and use Switch the Play and my Players Association, etc., to try and find different opportunities where I could bulk up my CV, so to speak, to set me up for afterwards, because I don't have those salaries that the men have, etc. So I've got to definitely have a backup plan for when I finish.
Brilliant, thanks. We'll come back to some of those points you made around kind of the professionalism as well. But Arela, talking about your journey as a volleyball player and now actually finding that sort of sweet spot in terms of utilising your background as a professional athlete and also then your passion for mental health and supporting that life on the pitch.
Yeah, so I played volleyball in the States, got a full volleyball scholarship, which again isn't available in the UK, but it's quite competitive there. And in the States, and yeah, I had a really successful volleyball career. And in the States, it's very competitive, it's very intense. For anyone that's played, in both countries, the differences are quite clear in terms of access and support, mindset, and all of that. So that's kind of the pathway I took. Then I was recruited to come out here, play volleyball. I played for UEL, got my master's in strength and conditioning, so stayed in the realm of sport with my education. And after volleyball, became a strength and conditioning, athlete development coach, and really wanted to combine wellness more, because I didn't really see it out here in the UK. So I co-founded a business which brought strength and conditioning and mindfulness to grassroots sports clubs, because I started lifting weights at the age of 14. And as an outside hitter in volleyball, I'm short, but I had a 30-inch vertical. I had hops, all thanks to lifting. And that gave me a lot of advantages, and prevented a lot of injuries. So I saw strength and conditioning, one, as part of athlete well-being. And I also got to teach things like visualization, meditation, positive affirmations, and that's what we were bringing to schools and sports clubs. Fast forward a little bit, and I wanted to see what else I could do outside of sport. And I didn't know what that was. And that was really challenging, felt very lost, confused. Through my own self-awareness journey, I realized that I was really dysregulated, disconnected from my body. I actually did have injuries that I didn't realize were injuries until after sport. And so now I'm working to help rebuild, I guess, that coach-athlete relationship, and where in coaching development, when an athlete is in a coach's care, what can coaches do better to support well-being? And I realized that through strength and conditioning, it was actually hurting my well-being. I had eating disorder, compulsive exercise disorder, panic attacks, anxiety, depression, all of that stuff. Went through really bad mental health time. And now I'm seeing ways in which the sport industry can prevent that. So that's what I'm working towards.
That's amazing. And the fact that, you've showcased your entrepreneurial skills to say, hey, there's a gap here in women's sport. What can I do to make it better? And I suppose I put the question to all of you. What can the sports industry do more to help that transition from being a professional athlete to life after sport? I'll start with you, Ella.
A lot. There are definitely gaps in the market. So I want to say that there's infrastructure there already. So especially speaking from being on national teams, you obviously get more support in the face, in terms from Netball U's UK in EIS, or the UK EIS now, where you get allocations of performance lifestyle, etc., which are meant to help you figure out, well, one, what you're doing now, and if you can rearrange your life any better, but two, what are you working towards? Can you get a coaching qualification here? Can you go and do the masters? Is there a connection we could use where we could push you in that direction? But I think I said on a different call earlier that it's a two-way thing, that the athlete has to demand it, but if you're a young athlete at the age 32, I can demand it a bit more than a young athlete. So I think that's them going outside of their comfort zone and approaching people and pushing them to make sure they're aware of what is available to them. Because I speak to some of the young girls now coming through and they don't really know what a performance lifestyle person does. And that's partly on them, but it's also partly on the performance lifestyle. That's their whole job description, and they, in my eyes, are failing in that aspect if they've got people on a national team that don't know what their role is, to help them strive to get better as a person, which will in turn, we've seen, will help them get better as a player.
So that support throughout the whole pathway, from the young age all the way through to, you know, where you're at as a 32-year-old. And what about you then, Lauren, in terms of what do you think could be done more to support that kind of transition?
I think just to follow on from what Ella said, and also from kind of what's been spoken about quite widely today already, is education. I think that's like so important. That's been, you know, a thread like throughout this whole day, for example. I think that there's so much that we need to kind of work towards and give athletes support, but it's almost like, why are we doing it in retrospect? Can we be a bit more proactive about it? Obviously, I'm now 32 and I'm like, oh, like, what should I be doing? Like, you know, like what opportunities are out there? But I think someone had asked the question to the panel this morning of the younger people that were here, who spoke amazingly, by the way, made it look so easy. But they're obviously at the start of their careers, say, but is there anything outside of that they're also interested in? I think that's something that I've maybe taken as a positive from my injury experience. Is like, luckily for me, I was quite academic, and I put all my sort of focus and energy that I was missing from putting onto the training pitch into that academic side of things, and doing research around ACL injury, injury reduction techniques, all those types of things, like over 15 years ago. And that's still relevant today, and it's maybe got more visibility today because of obviously high profile cases that we've kind of seen in the media over the last year or so. So I think that education and that sort of pursuit of a dual career, a different interest, and making sure that I don't think I'm just a footballer. Like, I have other things to offer. I have more value outside of my sport. I'm just a person who plays football, but I am X, Y, and Z. And I think that buys into sort of what Claire was speaking about earlier, is what are your I ams? And I think that's something I found out quite early on through being injured for so long at such a young age. And I worry that that's not going to be so easy for the younger generation now, where they can see, I can be a lioness at age 8 years old, I can get to that, and I can be a professional. But there's also value in having some education to say there's other opportunities there off the pitch that will be, you know, valuable to you, because you don't know what can happen in sport.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, you touched upon there of knowing your identity and your purpose. Arela, how would you sort of describe your journey to finding your identity and purpose, and how has that helped you with your challenges that you faced?
Yeah, so I was definitely one of those people with a very strong athletic identity. Kind of makes me a little jealous. Not really that I didn't have an injury to make me find that and discover that, but yeah, in the research that I was doing, it was basically saying the athletes with the strongest athletic identity have the hardest time transitioning out of sport. And since 14, like, my identity was student athlete. And so when I lost university, when I lost volleyball, I did not know what I liked to do, what I wanted to do. And so I had to start thinking, okay, well, what did I like to do when I was a kid? I liked to dance, I liked to draw, and so started doing those activities again. But it took a while to get there, because I realized a lot of limiting beliefs that I had came from the sports world. So perfectionism and being afraid to be a beginner at something was something that I had to get over, still getting over. But yeah, really diving into my creativity and remembering that I was a creative person before I was an athlete. And yeah, so I started doing dance classes and being a beginner. I started crocheting, painting, putting my art out there more, and just exploring different things, taking acting classes, whatever other classes. I'm in a poetry course right now. And yeah, so just doing a lot of different things that I enjoyed as a child to get back to my identity. Yeah.
So a lot of that is off your own back. And for you, Lauren, talking about actually making an opportunity out of, adversity in the sense of your injury. So what would have been really helpful for you, though, as athletes to actually support you on that journey? You've gone off your own back, but how can we make the future and make the industry better to support those young athletes coming through? Lauren?
I think obviously, like I found in the last few months, like Switch to Play, not meaning to plug or anything, but it's been amazing. Like I didn't even know about it. So almost that awareness of like there are people out there, like we've heard so many amazing people today who, I don't want to use the word allies because Ugo's put me off that word now, but there's so many people out there that actually do genuinely want to help. And having that, push to be, I think a lot of the athletes that have spoken today or people in different industries have spoken about that support network, and I think a lot of that's come from parents as well. So I think that's a big area in which that we need to really try and make sure that like the next generation is encouraged to do sport, yes, but also encouraged to do other things at the same time, because they do go hand in hand, and you can be successful in your sport and you can be successful outside of sport, and taking things from other industries that maybe you learn off the pitch can actually help your performance on the pitch as well. And I think that dual career type thing should be something that's really encouraged, especially for female athletes, because we all know that the salaries that we earn, if we even earn a salary while we're playing, aren't going to be enough to sustain us for even months after we stop playing. So I think that's really important to push that message.
Yeah, I think I remember reading a report from FIFPro, the Global Footballers Association, about how actually female athletes with dual career, that is something that we can teach men's sport, because that's such a positive to help on the pitch as well. So that aspect of dual career, and actually, Ella, it's really kind of pertinent for you in your full-time job that you have at the moment. How has that helped you in your career and now where you are as head of netball?
Yeah. It's hard to say, because I would love to say that like my playing career would give me enough money where I could just sit at home for the rest of the day. But I played professionally as well after I finished university in Spain and Italy. And you've gone from actually being professional of like double day training sessions, morning, evening, and then like preparing yourself the rest of the time, to being a semi-professional where you're training twice a week in the evenings, a morning session, and then like most other things are self-led, to having so much free time. So to try and fill that time, slash hopefully progress myself, make myself better, put myself out there a little bit more. Was fortunate enough that my team had a connection with the schools to enable me to get that role I started off as a GSA, like a graduate sports assistant, working part-time, dipping in, coaching some netball, to now fully getting into being a head of netball, leading people, and having that managerial role almost, while hopefully, which has been a big push, like making girls better, and educating them hopefully from a different perspective of, like, yes, I've accomplished a lot sports-wise, but it's a very small percentage of people that manage to make it, which I'm not obviously killing their dreams and I'm pushing them towards it, but there needs to be a little bit of like realization that still do things that you enjoy. Like sport isn't your be all and end all, which is hypocritical for me to say, because I thought that as a young age that like I had to play sport. Like I couldn't do that because I've got training the next day, or I've got basketball, I've got netball, etc. And I think if I would go back, it would be like have a bit more of a balance, and still push myself to get to the level I got to. But I think a balance is really key. Yeah,
and I think what I was really interested, even talking to you sort of backstage, about that reality of professionalism and being a fresh professional, or what is often labelled semi-professional. Talk to us a little bit about that, and maybe some of your frustration around that label.
I am a firm believer that there is no such thing as semi-professional athlete. The wage says there's semi-professional athlete, but the lifestyle doesn't. You prepare yourself in the exact same way as a professional does. You revolve your diet around it, you revolve your rest around it, you revolve your socialisation schedule around it. You can't go to weddings, you can't go to funerals because you've got a game, you can't go to certain things. Like, there's no such thing as a semi-professional athlete. It's just a label. So yeah, I mean, pet peeve of mine, obviously, as you can tell. But yeah, we're expected to give as much as a professional athlete with a fraction of the same wage. So therefore, trying to balance a dual career becomes harder because you want to give 100% to both aspects of your life.
Yeah. And then that kind of narrative of, the product isn't as good as in comparison with male athletes just becomes simply completely invalid, essentially. Go on,
I'm
Aaron.
just going to jump in there. I think it's really interesting as well, like we've also heard today, like it is obviously about the money and the wage, and we kind of spoke backstage a little bit as well. It's about like the kit you get, like what equipment you have, what facilities you have access to. I think it was Victoria said earlier with cricket about how the girls are just told to come in their clothes so they don't have to, use the boys' changing room. Like, why do women, was there ever going to be a time where women don't have to accommodate for that? Is it going to be a time where, like we have access to the facilities, or maybe the men have to accommodate for us? Like, who knows? Like, I don't know the answer to that. Having access to quality people, quality coaches, enough people that can support all the types of things that Arela's highlighting as well, that like maybe are missing and maybe that we need. And I think definitely if I couldn't even do a body squat at 14, never mind lift weights. I just couldn't, and that's maybe something that, we need to look at, like the really young generation, and make sure that their bodies, their minds are capable to like reach the levels of sport, because the women's it's just going to keep growing in all sports, across all three of our sports, and those beyond. So I think like that's something I'm also really passionate about. You've alluded that potentially you think maybe you've kind of prevented yourself from having injuries. Like that's something I'm so passionate about, because injuries really do have like a massive impact on a person, not just in terms of their sporting career, but also their life as well. So I think that's, comes with all those resources that comes from money, fortunately.
Yeah. But I think on the, yes, injuries, but I was 14 and I was one of 2, sometimes 3 girls lifting during puberty. I was forced to be there with about 20, 14 to 18-year-old boys. I forget who I was talking to about this, but it took away a lot of my femininity. I didn't feel like there was room for my femininity in sport. I was competing with guys. I didn't want to be compared to them. If I was on my period, like I got told to get over it, or I didn't want to say that because I didn't want my male coach to tell me to get over it, which I knew he was going to say. So that was really tough, and trying to discover that femininity outside of sport, always having to be compared to men. You're fast for a girl, all that stuff was tough mentally, and I wouldn't have stuck with it if I didn't see how it translated into my play. Yeah.
I'm conscious of time, but I just want to ask one final question to all of you. If you could be succinct as possible, that would be great. If you could tell your younger self, who was just starting out in their professional sports career, one piece of advice to prepare for the future, what would it be? Arela, we'll start with you.
Yeah. Have boundaries, explore your identity, and don't be afraid to speak up for yourself when you have that intuitive feeling that you need to speak up for yourself.
Lauren?
I think that's quite hard to follow. Maybe just to touch on what I said earlier about identity, yes, I wanted to be a footballer. I felt like I was one, wanted to be professional, watched Bend It Like Beckham, and like wanted to move to the US and be like all that was there. But making sure that that I put my focus into other things, and I'm open to opportunities that aren't just channeled into one, tunnel vision with sport. And that I can do that, like Ella said, and also push myself to be the best I can be.
Ella?
Pretty similar to what those two have said, but also I think just leaning on people a bit more. So whether that's leaning on me during my playing career, leaning on like coaches, etc., but also leaning on connections I've got. So like leaning on Switch to Play, leaning on my Players Association for those connections, and just I think the main thing is just get used to getting outside my comfort zone. Like this is outside of my comfort zone, but like if I would have done this a few years ago, it could be a different story. Yeah,
amazing. Thank you very much. And if you do get the chance to speak to some of the Switch to Play team, give us a wave. Mentors, Rob, Matt, there you are. Please do speak to us about how you can support the charity. Thank you very much, guys. Round of applause for everybody.
Nicole, Ella, Arela and Laura, that was brilliant. And Ella, you can definitely do more of this going forward. So thank you all so much.